What's going on, peeps? It's Wrath here, hanging out today, playing some Idle Heroes. I want to thank you guys so much for coming out with me today. If you liked the video, don't forget, smash that thumbs up button to show your support, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright guys, we're here today to do another hero analysis. Today is going to be Heartwatcher. Bam! Woo! We're going to do a little bit of testing with her. As always, we're going to go through, read the skills, look at a gearing guide, talk about enables, and then do a little bit of testing with her, talk about where she's good, where she's bad. The normal stuff. So, take a deep breath, get ready to do some reading. Alright, here we go. Active skill, Mind Torture. I've never actually read that active skill before. That sounds torturous. But anyways, 2 random enemies are going to take 255% of her attack as damage, decrease their attack by 25% for 2 rounds, and increase their damage taken by 45% with a cap of 300%. What that simply means is, as you stack that mark, it's supposed to be a mark that you add on there, but I guess they removed that description in the private server. As you attack the enemy, they build up those marks. Those marks will cap at 300% increased damage taken, which will increase the damage your units do by actually 4 times damage, not 3. It's a 4 times damage boost, which is great. It's amazing for PvE, and it's the reason I tell everyone who's going for PvE that Heartwatcher is almost an absolute must build if you're going for top PvE damage. You've got to have her. First passive here, Tough Heart. Increase attack by 30%, crit chance by 30, and health by 20. Just kind of a normal run-of-the-mill passive there. The thing to keep in mind is the crit chance. That's great. Anytime you see crit chance, it means you can run crit builds. And Heartwatcher benefits greatly from a crit build because of this passive. When she hits with a critical hit, she's going to take 280% of her attack as healing. So if you build her with crit, she's going to crit more. The more she crits, the more she heals. And that definitely plays out very well in places like the Aspen dungeon. And anywhere, really, in PvE with boss fights. In PvP, she's kind of a turd. I'm just going to say it. She's a turd. It's a thing. Last passive here, the Weakness Strike. 2 random enemies take 110% of her attack as damage and increase their damage taken by 35%. The thing to keep in mind here, when you're looking at Heartwatcher's damage stacking, is to notice her basic attack only does damage taken 35%, whereas her active skill is a 45% damage boost, which means if you want the maximum amount of damage boosting possible for your team as fast as possible, you have to run energy artifacts on your Heartwatcher to get that 45% out before the 35%. Otherwise, you're going to lose 10% damage taken on that round 1, and you just lose 10% damage the entire time until it stacks out and, caps. But let's go ahead and look at the gearing guide. As always, this stuff doesn't really matter. Assassin gear obviously is pretty solid. If you don't have it, 6-star gear works just fine. For the stone, there's 2 main stones I see on Heartwatcher. The first one is crit HP. This is more of a survival stone. It gives her a lot of crit chance, which is great for her healing, but it also gives her a good chunk of health as well to make sure she's not so easy to one-shot or kill. As you can see, my Heartwatcher has over 3 million health, which is pretty impressive for an assassin-based unit. That's not bad. But anyways, the other stone you're going to see is crit and crit damage. The reason you see that stone is because, obviously, it's going to boost your damage output by quite a bit. You just don't get the HP for survivability. It really depends on which way you want to go with your Heartwatcher. If you want her to survive a little bit more, a little easier, you run HP. If you want max damage, you're going to go double crit. However, when it comes to the artifact, if you're in PvE, the hands-down best artifact for a 10-star plus Heartwatcher is always going to be an energy artifact. However, if your Heartwatcher is 9-star or below, we'll go over here and look. Beep. 6-star Heartwatcher be a thing. There it is. You'll notice her active skill is only going to increase damage taken by 25%. That's all the way up till 9-star. This isn't quite there yet because that's what you unlock at 9-star. But if you run an energy artifact on a 9-star Heartwatcher, you're actually going to do less damage stacking than if you just left her basic, because her basic attack will add a higher stack than her active skill at that point. Once you break over 10-star, though, it's time to ditch any other artifact and go with an energy artifact for max PvE damage. In my opinion, Demon Bell's a fantastic choice. It boosts her attack and her HP, which adds to that big survivability number. But any energy artifact will do. Magic Source will work just fine, stuff like that. It all works out. I've got so many freaking energy artifacts. I've got a max Magic Source and 3 more of them. Most energy artifacts of any season I've played. But whatever, not a big deal. That's the main artifact you're going to use for max damage, but What if you don't have it? Wrath, I don't have an energy artifact. What do I use? Well, in that case, you're going to use whatever damage boosting or crit boosting artifact you have, unless your Heart Watcher's dying really easy, in which case you're going to swap in something like reduced damage and HP to make sure she's not dying and able to actually stack those marks up. Otherwise, it's going to be damage boosting, just because it's there. Preferably something with crit. Do I have one of those laying around? I don't have them. Something with crit in the substats. Even if it's a red artifact, it's going to boost her chance to crit. The more she crits, the more she heals, and she'll get more out of that than just a flat attack, in my opinion. But like I said, artifacts are a very malleable thing. Depending on what you're fighting, where you're fighting, what you're doing, that artifact can change. But mostly when it comes like Marauder fights and stuff like that, her best output is going to be with the Demon Bell or another energy artifact. However, in guild boss fights, if you have trouble with her dying a little bit too easy, throwing a reduced damage artifact on her is not a bad idea at all. It definitely helps her survive a little bit. As for enables, we're going to run the stock vanilla enables for our first test. Then we're going to try to pimp out Heart Watcher for damage, which she's not necessarily built for, and see what we can get out of her that way. And then that's probably going to be all the testing we do with Heart Watcher, because Heart Watcher is not a PvP unit. Absolutely uppercase letter, not a PvP unit. So let's go ahead and do our first battle like so. We'll fight... Is your Kamath still alive? It still is. Go team. Go team. We're going to see what she runs. This first test is going to be with... You know what? Yeah, we'll run the first test like it is with the Demon Bell to showcase her damage stacking, which isn't really super important. I guess you'll get the idea right when it happens. Bam! Active skill round 1. Essentially what she just did is A, she nerfed Kamath's attack a little bit, and B, she's also gave him a 45% damage increase, or taken damage increase. So all your team is now hitting just a little bit harder than she used her basic attack to start things out with. But anyways, whatevs. We'll run it out like this and kind of just see what we get. My Vesa, I think, is actually still built up for damage. I don't think I've swapped her back to official passives, but whatever. The idea here is to test Heart Watcher out, and when you're testing Heart Watcher, it's really not about Heart Watcher's damage. It's mainly about what she does for your team. And in this case, she's going to debuff attack and boost damage taken by the enemy, which is exactly what you build her for. Without Heart Watcher in your team, that'd be a good test, actually, is what if we just ditched Heart Watcher and then did our damage test? Thinking with my mind hole. I don't know what a mind hole is, but I've got one. It's a thing. But anyways, here we go, wrapping things up last round. Boop, boop, bam. Get an idea of what our team dropped. 193 million damage. Vesa dropped about 137 million, and Heart Watcher at 32 million. Again, I didn't build Heart Watcher for damage this time. It's just kind of testing what she does. So if we were to go like so, and go back to VGood, and we were to ditch our Heart Watcher and say, you know what? We're not going to use Heart Watcher. I'm going to throw a Forest in there just to make sure I maintain the aura. But we're just going to leave it kind of like this. Let's put you in the front. The reason I want to put Shia in the front this time is because she is going to have an attack reduction for my team. So she might help me keep from the Kamath from killing my back line and getting a better, more accurate test. So without Heart Watcher in my lineup, we're just going to next it so we ain't got to watch through the whole thing. Look at that damage reduction. We went from hitting nearly 200 million damage to doing less than half of that immediately. Actually, almost a third of it. And look at Vesa dropping 59 million damage. That is why I say every time, you have to have your Heart Watcher if you're wanting max PvE damage. She's just so good for damage boosting that you've just got to have one. You've got to have her if you want max PvE damage. Very solid unit. But now let's dong around a little bit and try to boost her damage as high as possible. We'll go private server enables, the usual trio of max damage, the crit after round 4, mightiness, and spell control. These are generally the best passives for just outright straight up damage boost. It works the best. Generally speaking, that's what you do. I don't have the crit stone, so her damage will be slightly lower, obviously, than if you ran a double crit stone. But this is just for funsies. Generally speaking, like I said, you never use Heart Watcher as a damage roll. She's almost always there for support. How much HP do you got left? 11. We can probably do another battle here. Let's go ahead and ditch you out like so. Ditch you back in like a bam. And let's see. let's see what our Heart Watcher's capable of if we pump her out all the way towards damage. Ranger class artifact, which is obviously going to boost her damage versus Rangers, which Kamath is. The spell control, the crit after round 4, we're all in right now for max Heart Watcher damage. And to keep in mind, Heart Watcher is Forest, Kamath is Shadow, so she doesn't just have the boost of Faction and the class-based artifact, but also because her class, the Forest, is better than Shadow, she's doing extra damage that she normally wouldn't against a different unit. So this is about the hardest you're going to see a Heart Watcher hit that doesn't have a double crit stone, or outside of a double crit stone, the assassin gear on as well. So still dropping pretty solid damage out there, even without the double crit stone. No crit on that one does kind of sting a little bit, because that's where she gets the biggest damage boosts. We're going to kill it. It's going to die. It's going to happen. I feel it. Oh, don't kill it yet. Let it be alive until she drops another one. 39 million. There it is, 40 million dead. So we didn't get the full run, which is a little bit sad, but holy ballsack. That's a lot of damage. 290 for me. That's not a lot of damage in the grand scheme of things, but with my team the way it is, nearly 300 million damage is not bad. And you can see Heart Watcher comes up in line with Vesa. Very close too. Which is actually kind of surprising, being as Vesa is not geared up with the Ranger damage artifact. However, she does have double crit, so she is hitting pretty hard. But if you look at that, that's a pretty decent damage chunk. Most people don't run their Heart Watcher this way, though, mainly because it didn't really sacrifice team damage in this case, but I only have a couple people doing damage. Normally, you would have, an E3 Sigmund back here, E3 Shia, a team behind it equal to their power level, and you would get much more damage putting your best gear on those units and then using her with the Demon Bell to make sure their damage stacking was optimized. That's why I say Heart Watcher is not a damage-based unit, because generally speaking, in a PvE team, you're going to put that extra Ranger damage on something like E3 Sigmund, E3 Dasmog, something of that nature to get even higher damage output. Whereas in this case, fighting someone where she has not only Forest to Shadow advantage, but also the Ranger gear, just a hair over 100 million, 127 million damage, which isn't bad damage, but it's nothing like you're going to see coming from an E3 Sigmund or an E3 Dasmog, who's capable of dropping 200, 300 plus million damage. So that's normally why I say you don't build her this way. Does she function in that way? Sure, she does pretty decent damage, but grab those gems, hot gems. That's pretty much what you run Heart Watcher as. I normally recommend the Demon Bell. If you're on official, obviously your enables are locked in. If you're on the private server and you're having trouble with things killing your team, run her as a debuff unit. This is the best way I've seen to run her, for me at least. Running things like breaking attack and crit with her basic attack on the private server is fantastic. It's an absolutely great thing to run. And if she's still having trouble with dying or your team's dying, you can swap out her mightiness for something like Guardian Spirit for some reduced damage when she falls below half health to boost your entire team survivability. So that's kind of how I like to build a private server Heart Watcher, more towards support and let my damage units do the damage and let her support them in that. That's kind of how I like to build her. But like I said, you saw with your own eyeball places that she can put out pretty decent damage. And that's with an unoptimal stone and not assassin gear. Unoptimal? That sounds like a stupid thing to say, but I said it, so it's a thing now. Anyways, that's pretty much all we got to talk about for Heart Watcher. That's her job. It's PvE to the bone. When it comes to the Aspen dungeon, I crapped out a little early here, Nightmare 50, which was really sad because I didn't beat Nightmare 50 to be able to smash to it, but it's not a big deal because it's going to end before whatever anyways. Heart Watcher at 10 star can absolutely get you to Nightmare in the Aspen dungeon. I've done it. It's easy to... It's relatively easy to do. It works. When it comes to Nightmare Plus, she struggles on certain waves, as every hero does in the Aspen at Nightmare Plus. There's certain waves that just give you a fit, like all 4 scaries. Kind of tough to take that down. Single Sigmunds, kind of tough to take that down. But she does surprisingly well against priests because she can stack damage and then one-shot them. Does very well against things like Gru because, again, she's going to stack those marks on him until she can really nuke him down and he can't out-heal her damage. She does work really well in the Aspen, and I would say E3 Heart Watcher with a decent supporting team can definitely get you to Hell mode. The key behind that is always supporting team. I haven't seen a single unit yet without massive RNG luck that can go from Nightmare 1 to Hell 1 with no teammates. Just you drop that unit in every time, bam, bam, bam. You have to have either impeccable skills with an amazing knowledge of how everything works, tons of demon potions, or just really lucky RNG with the waves you get for units to pull that off. But like I said, with a good team behind her, I guarantee you can get Heartwatcher to Hell mode. No doubt in my mind. So when it comes to the Aspen, stuff like that, very good unit. PvE, pretty much in general, is Heartwatcher's domain. She's great there. When you step into PvP, we're not going to do it here because there's no need to. She's not a PvP unit. She doesn't work well in late game PvP. She works okay, like almost any unit that's a decent unit is going to work all right in the early and mid game PvP teams where you're fighting people that haven't really decided what team they're building. They're kind of having half PvP teams, half PvE teams. She'll still work there, but once you get to heavy crowd control territory, she gets crapped on real quick. She gets blasted pretty much until she can do nothing, and then she dies. It's just what happens. She can't stack her damage fast enough. She just gets wrecked on. But like I said, early to mid game, fantastic in PvP, is going to do a lot for you. Later on, don't use her. She's solid PvE though. So when it comes down to a rank for Heartwatcher, she's another one of those units that I can't say she's a god, even though in PvE, she is. She's absolutely a god of PvE, not because the damage that she does, but the damage that she allows your team to do. However, because she's not good in late game PvP, she does lose points there, and that's something you got to keep in mind. So I would say she's still, at worst, a B+ unit. Probably I'd give her an A. I'm a PvE guy too, so I'm a little biased, keep that in mind. But like I said, when you're looking at late game, in-game PvE teams, you can almost bet your bottom dollar there's a Heartwatcher in that team, because without her, your team's damage suffers ridiculously bad. So for PvE, God tier, 100%. If you're going PvE, build one. If you're going straight PvP, you might not. You don't really need to. It's still not a bad idea to have one if you're a PvP player, because it will help your PvP units do more damage in PvE and kind of help balance out your guild boss damage a little bit, in my opinion. So I would say definitely a solid unit, worth a build. But that's it. Everything we've covered, we've covered. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please make sure, smash that thumbs up button to show your support. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well, and tell your friends about it, because that definitely helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys in the next one.